Good evening and welcome to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on The Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WIBC. We've got a lot to cover tonight, whether my voice is raring and ready to go or not. So let's press on through it on this Friday, August the 14th, shall we? First and foremost, the Trump administration with a rather bizarre victory. And I have to say bizarre because temporary protected status is something that the President of the United States can grant to a group of people upon the authority of the Secretary of State in the executive branch. And once the president then declares that temporary protected status for any group from any country, and there's a number of different reasons for it, some things have to be ratified, some things don't, those individuals are allowed to then seek asylum in the United States. And it is supposed to be temporary. Now, a lot of presidents in the last 30 years have introduced temporary protected status for various individuals and groups. And then there are very few presidents who have actually shut the door and ended the temporary protected status. Well, the president of the United States earlier this year declared that temporary protected status for Somalians was over. And then judges came in and legal lawsuits from the African Communities Together Partnership for the Advancement of New Americans. Anywho, they sued the Department of Homeland Security, Secretary Markwayne Mullin, and said, yeah, you're not allowed to kick us out because we get to live here, which is interesting and bizarre given the frame that I just gave to you. So Allison Burroughs, she initially suggested that she was going to put a bit of a stay. She said, you know what, we're going to hear him out. And then Representative Andy Ogles of Tennessee, who did, by the way, lose his seat in a primary in just a couple of days back, after he introduced articles of impeachment for Allison Burroughs, a couple of days later, Judge Allison came forward and said, yeah, I don't think the challengers are likely to succeed, and ruled that the temporary protected status holders have no due process right to an extension. And the Supreme Court's Mullin decision foreclosed their race discrimination theory. Meaning this, the president just has to say, I really don't want to have temporary protected status that's kind of eternal. And the Supreme Court said, yeah, obviously. And just because someone over on MS Now is screaming and clutching the pearls and outraged and that kind of you need to leave style energy, Just because that person says that doesn't mean that the Trump administration then has to stop and say, oh, you're right. I guess this is actually racist, even though Somalian is not a race, would be a group from a particular country. Either way, the president of the United States made it perfectly clear that this group of individuals, this wasn't based on race. It was based on the aggregate performance of these individuals here in the United States.
These are people that have been not successful. They're people that have been, in many cases, failures. They come from other failed countries, and they come here and they tell us how to run our country. They come from...
Now, that is true, by the way. How interesting that so many groups who come to the United States to flee a country that is horrible and war-torn and awful, who will cry, big, huge crocodile tears. They will get very, very angry if you call Haiti a bleep hole country. And then if you try to send them back to Haiti, they'll go, no, don't send us there. That's absolute hell. That's actually what one individual suggested. Now, you can't have it both ways.
Places like, I won't mention because I don't want to get myself into a controversy, but they come from countries that are not great.
Third world countries is what the president means.
They come from, let's say, as an example, Somalia. They come in and then they tell us how our Constitution, how our Declaration of Independence, how it works. It doesn't work that way, and they're not smart. They have no aptitude. They have nothing going, and they're telling us how to run our country.
Now, before you get all up in arms and say, well, that's really, really, really mean, I will remind you that at the beginning of this year, that when the Somalian community, amid all of the wire fraud charges and the, nonprofit fraud and the Medicare fraud and the Medicaid fraud and the USDA fraud, and then the grant towards nonprofits for feeding of children fraud and the education fraud and the child care fraud, which is different than education fraud. And then, of course, international wire fraud, which is different from regular wire fraud. When that all popped up in the exact same community, when they came forward and said, you know what, how dare you accuse us? I'll tell you what it means to be Somalian. Well,
So I'm Somali. I'm proud to be Somali. To me, being Somali isn't just eating bananas with rice. It's a lot. It's like
Hang on a sec. Hold on. It's Friday, so I'm going to do this. I have to zoom in and enhance behind her. Look, I have like the little forehead dimple when I wrinkle in consternation as well, but this dude behind her has a whole credit card crease right there. My goodness, you have to stick the chip in and it beeps. Goodness gracious. Sorry, I know that. Sorry, she's talking about it. She says being Somali is not just bananas and rice. So let's hear what it is.
It's an interesting thing. It's very hard to describe what it means to be Somali and what it means to be American, but it's like a cultural fusion. It's kind of like the bananas and rice.
Okay. Yeah, that's
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
So again, I'm just going to make the case right now. Again, this is still very bizarre because the president never should have had to fight a legal battle over this. There are things that the executive branch of government has always had jurisdiction over, according to the U.S. Constitution. That's immigration, by the way. Congress doesn't even really get to decide all of the individual terms. As this country was initially set up, it was the president and the Secretary of State who, together with the cabinet, convinced Washington what to do regarding foreign policy. And then Congress acted largely as a rubber stamp to commit resources from the 13 states to the measure. That's what it's for. And that's not just me saying that. Those are the writings of the founding and the first, second, and third generation fathers of our country have made that perfectly clear. Just because the administrative state now does a bunch of stuff it was never intended to do doesn't mean that it still can't. Just because Michael Jordan had a little bit of a weird baseball career didn't mean that he couldn't still turn around and dunk a basketball. You know what I'm saying? So, no. All right. And now I will say my heart goes out to Ilhan Omar, who's got to be going through a real one at the moment, just for real there. Now, only I believe there are currently a lot of reviews over visas and immigration and how many individuals in Somalia are under protected status, this temporary protected status. It is a low number. I believe it's like only 7% of those who are here in the country. So only about 2,500 people are impacted, which again is rather bizarre because why make a whole lot of hullabaloo around just 2,500 people? But alas, a lot of this seems to be going around just the attempted stymieing of any kind of progress in the United States at all, just to simply say that the administration didn't accomplish anything. Case in point, the White House. Okay, whether or not you like the fact that the president knocked over the nasty mold-ridden cubicles. I've been to the East Wing of the White House. I've got the Lego of the White House right up here. And no, FBI in the Biden era, that doesn't mean I'm planning to infiltrate the White House. The old East Wing of the White House was ugly. It was crappy office space. It was. And the president of the United States said, instead of asking Congress to retrofit this and do a big, huge remodel, I'm going to fund it privately. And we're going to make it a really nice big ballroom. It is something that Republican and Democrat presidents and Republican and Democrat senators and independent senators who caucus with Democrats have made it perfectly clear over the last 50 to 100 years. Man, it would really be nice if we could have a place to hold big fancy state dinners. And then everyone threw a fit because they decided to pretend, I could just get rid of the White House. It's just the East Wing and the cubicles. That's where Jim Halpert looked at the camera, don't you know? All of that nonsense, it resulted in different federal lawsuits and injunctions and freezes and squeezes. Well, finally, the Trump administration is requesting that the Supreme Court of the United States allow construction of the White House, requesting an immediate pause of lower court injunctions, which are set to take effect on August 21st. And the real reason, like the actual practical reason, guys, the building's already knocked down. The president's bunker is under the East Wing. Whether or not you like it or hate it, by the way, Trump's not going to get to enjoy it anyway. Just let the man build the building now. You're here. You can't build an exact replica. You're not the guy who restored Woody from Toy Story 2. That's not how this works. So Chief Justice John Roberts, he did weigh in and set kind of a timer here, which is a little interesting. Radio crew, we have to send you guys over to the commercial break, and we're going to keep moving on for our roundup of this wonderful weekly news on the live stream. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. Now, John Roberts, who, again, has ruled against the Trump administration a couple of times, ruled for the Trump administration a couple of times. John Roberts has a weakness. He does. John Roberts' weakness is he doesn't like to be poked. He has a rather small amount of patience, and it can be weathered away rather quickly. So Justice John Roberts has been poked by people on the left about this over and over and over and over and over. Amen. And now he has set forward an argument that the opponents of the White House ballroom are required to respond by noon on Tuesday of next week to the Trump administration's request to pause the injunction. And if they don't actually come up with a decent case as to why the president of the United States, if he's paying for the things that are not defense related. By the way, the president of the United States does not have to go to Congress to upgrade the defenses on the White House. They're saying, well, but it's still using taxpayer money. Why doesn't he have to go through Congress? Because it's not about chairs inside at the ballroom. It's about anti-drone countermeasures. And if China and Iran and Ukraine and Russia and other countries out there, which are considered adversaries to the United States, Cuba perhaps, are now using drone swarms or monofilament controlled drones that don't necessarily use a wireless signal to actually attack things, and if there is an actual Chinese sniper and special forces intelligence officer that has bought a building 650 feet from the White House grounds, as we reported on yesterday, then yeah, maybe the president should just get to actually, build the building. Now, the Supreme Court is also expected to take a bit of a closer look at the president of the United States and the post office. So this is where things are going to get rather spicy over the next couple of days. The Department of Justice Office of Legal Counsel has issued a bunch of very queer rulings regarding the post office. So, for example, the federal post office has had a gun ban for a good amount of time, suggesting that you're not allowed to walk into a post office and have a firearm on your hip. And even though states like Texas and Nebraska and even Indiana back in 1998 tried to interfere and said, hey, these United States Postal Service buildings, you need to let people carry guns because they're public buildings. And the United States Postal Service responded, okay, yeah, you don't get to tell me what to do because the U.S. Postal Service, the USPS, is under the federal government. Well, the Department of Justice has essentially now labeled or issued new guidance, a new opinion, determining that the post office gun ban is unlawful, applying to otherwise law-abiding citizens. And federal courts really can't say boo about it because constitutionally, the Postmaster General doesn't report to Congress. The Postmaster General doesn't report to an Attorney General in some random state. The Postmaster General reports to the President of the United States. Say, Tony, why does this matter? Why does it? What's the point here? We are in the middle of an executive order by Donald Trump to secure voting in these mail-in ballots, barcodes on envelopes. And all of these leftist states, all the way from Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro to California Governor Gavin Newsom, filed a lawsuit and said that states are in control of the elections, so the Trump administration has no authority to order the post office in what to do. Yeah, he does. Because if states choose to use the U.S. Postal Service, it's on the USPS terms. Now, they can choose when to accept ballots and not. They can choose when and what needs to be included in the envelope. But as to the direction of the U.S. Postal Service, that's under the direction of the President of the United States. And so this other executive order, which is also likely finding its way to the Supreme Court, even Amy Coney Barrett's evolutionary view, her very Notre Dame Law School view of the Constitution, which is kind of made of kitten whispers and evolutionary documents. Sorry, even though I'm a Hoosier and I love the rest of Notre Dame Law School is the most overrated institution since the SEC. So in regard to the President of the United States and the Postal Service, even Amy Coney Barrett is likely to rule. If the Supreme Court even agrees to hear it, they'll probably just knock down the injunction because the president has complete authority over it. So there are some big federal judicial moves that are currently happening. And I believe the radio crew is just now joining us back from the Supreme Court. Now, in the, not from the Supreme Court, from their commercial break. Both of them are sometimes useless. Radio crew, welcome back from the commercial break. I'm Tony Kinnett. your slightly damaged voice host of the Tony Kinnett Cast, and we've got more news to cover this fine evening because there have been some other major judicial decisions as well. The socialists are absolutely heartbroken that Luigi Mangione, the young man who stalked and premeditated a murder, shooting Brian Thompson, the CEO of United Healthcare, who, by the way, was not even the CEO of the healthcare organization, the insurance company, that Luigi Mangione used. Well, Luigi Mangione was then, hunted down by the police. They found all of the manifesto because the guy's a left-wing activist. And as you're going to hear from other people, Luigi Mangione viewed this as a very important social act. So he actually wrote the manifesto and the I did it. And here's why, and I'm proud of it. And he was walking all smug and secure and all of these things that he had planned to do. As all of these goobers over on the internet side of things, who are way too online and desperately need to touch grass, made the bizarre decision, very, very bizarre decision, to suggest it was all like these conspiracies and, it's probably the Jews and the Pennsylvania police. Yeah. Did you know that Israel founded the Pennsylvania Commonwealth State Police? Oh, they didn't? Oh, because that's like actually tinfoil nonsense? Gee, well. Anywho, all of these left wing and then like horseshoe sort of to the right people online suggested Luigi Mangione was going to get off scot-free because the judge didn't allow this one bag of evidence. Guys, he shot him in downtown New York. That's the kind of thing that only Trump was supposed to get away with, huh? Fifth Avenue. So anyway, he pled guilty today.
Just a few moments ago, Mangione pled guilty to his heinous act. This was not a spontaneous act of violence. It was deliberate, calculated, and premeditated.
Clearly. Very, very, very clearly. And this is where everyone wants to run in and like make excuses for him and suggest, well, actually, Brian Thompson was like he was even like more guilty because he runs an insurance company that, like pays for people's medical bills and then charges people. And that's Brian. Actually, Luigi is actually like left-wing Jesus. He's like so amazing and wonderful. The brain rot.
Mangione attempted to send a public message through violence, but the message that emerges today is very different. Violence is not a legitimate instrument to promote any political or social message.
All right, so what did he actually plead guilty to here? He pled guilty to not only the murder. Again, he said, I did it. I killed him. But he also pled guilty to stalking. Again, that makes it very, very, very clear, very, very clear on the different parts and parcels and places, on what it actually is that's taking place, on what it is that will frame Luigi's sentencing. Very little room for any kind of appeal. The reason that this matters here is that Luigi is trying to seek federal prison so that, from my opinion here, and I guess you can take this with a grain of salt because now we're entering speculation territory, and I'm very clear when we enter that zone. He's hoping for a socialist president who's going to pardon him. That's what he's looking for. That's what he's hoping. But also, he had no chance anyway because he's proud of himself. Harris Faulkner also noted this, kind of talking a little body language as well. It's useful.
He doesn't seem to regret the crime. What he's trying to do is, I guess, get into a federal prison over a state prison. What I'm hoping to do from a non-legal aspect, maybe people want it differently, is this thing to end. Get him life and get him done. I'm tired of hearing about him like he's a celebrity. Number two, we really trust Alvin Bragg to prosecute the case in order to bring justice? When does this guy bring justice to anything? Jessica Tisch, she knows how to fight crime. He knows how to let criminals out. I do not want him any part of this case.
Yeah, now, hang on a second here. Now we're going to get to some of the interesting reaction because it is truly all about the reaction stuff. Because how the socialists online, who are, again, all of them, none of them are working class. All of them are a bunch of privileged little rich, often obese college kids who want to lead the revolution so they can do lesbian poetry and live on their farm. When, of course, all of us with above a fourth grade education know that with socialism and communism comes, dig the coal mine, comrade, dig, no lesbian poetry for you, that kind of a thing. So anywho, the response to this is, it's gross, it's weird, it's unseemly. Not necessarily surprisingly, though. So Hassan Piker is always hit the hardest. He says, for-profit healthcare kills 114,000 Americans every year. We have to change this system. I will remind you that for-profit healthcare, as broken as it is because it is way too overregulated. Again, I'm not allowed to buy health insurance from Utah, even if there's a company that provides a better deal. My doctors are often not allowed to broker, in many cases, certain kinds of care for me because of the insurance system. And again, the Obama revisions on the healthcare system made the corporate provision of healthcare insurance completely screw over a lot of the private healthcare market. I will remind you that not only, Hassan saying for-profit healthcare kills 114,000 Americans every year, for-profit healthcare saves and cares for over 29 million Americans a month. A month. So, in other words, Hassan's, kind of an idiot. He lost it over this stuff today.
Defense attorneys are now at the microphones. Let's listen.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Karen Friedman Agnifilo, and I represent Luigi Mangione. Today is a solemn and significant day. With today's guilty plea, Mr. Mangione has accepted full responsibility for the death of Brian Thompson, arising from the events of December 4th, 2024, outside of the United Healthcare Investor Conference here in Midtown Manhattan. It was a single.
To me, all this feels like a plan. I mean, it is. It is 100%. Like, the way that people are going to utilize this is they're going to weaponize anyone that says, like, oh, it was awesome or whatever. And they're going to use that to slam it against, like, advocates of Medicare for all.
Well, no. See, what people are saying, this is a good thing here, is, they're going to weaponize anybody who says that this murder was bad, to suggest that the Medicare for all people are often evil. Well, it just so happens that, again, Hassan Piker often calls for the direct and open murder of his political opponents. He does. It just so happens that a lot of the socialists are openly advocating for and making excuses for the violent murder of a father, which wasn't even the CEO of a corporation that Luigi Mangione used. So he's trying, they're going to go after all of the people who believe the same violent crap that I do.
100%. I'm just letting you guys know. So if you're not disciplined in this moment, if you think you can make jokes or anything like that, sorry, you can't. The knives are out. And
the knives are out, are they?
Absolutely. 1 million times over. They are going.
Again, I will remind you that the guy like behind him, he has like a celebration of 9/11 right behind him. Just the absolute trashiest of trash.
Would execute him.
I wanted to see this case in front of a jury because I really, really wanted to see how a jury would react to this.
The reason that he's saying that, this is the same as the O.J. Simpson thing. It doesn't matter whether or not the guy did it. It doesn't matter whether there is a universal and objective standard for justice. You're not allowed to murder people, especially in the higher degrees of cold blood, not a crime of passion, a premeditated, cold-blooded, mentally insane act of evil. You're not allowed to do that. And he said, well, I'm really hoping that in New York, there would have been enough people who would have sympathized with his murder because of his views. Just the absolute state of socialists here in the United States. Radio crew, we got to send you over to the commercial break while we dig into a little bit more of this, because this does bleed into a lot of the candidates that are currently up for the midterms. They're not quite yet aware of this being the albatross around their necks. This is the Tony Kinnett Cast radio crew. We'll see you guys in a second while we continue on the live stream. So again, the socialists are just having a really, really, really hard time. Like, Brian Thompson was responsible for the premature deaths of thousands of people with the stroke of a pen. No, he's not. Sources do trust me. That's not a thing. I've looked through all of the supposed evidence that's been compiled here. Brian Thompson did not make any directives in United Healthcare to cut pre-existing care for people or all that other kinds of stuff. That's just absolute BS. But it doesn't matter because the accusation for them and the emotion defines the importance. And they're going to go so far as to say that, well, and again, it's always the little rich, privileged girlies and guys who want to do this because they'll just suggest that it's just a revolutionary act of protest and it's amazing.
Exactly, because this is.
Hang on here. Do we have the the very, very, very strange, bizarre blonde girl freaking out about this? I know we do. Should be in the show clips. Let me pull it up here. Here it is from the New York Post.
Do you think it's wrong that he murdered someone regardless of why he did it? Everyone has a different opinion, and I'm not going to
Everyone has a different opinion about murder?
say it was wrong or right, because I do think I exist within a gray area of the opinions around this case, but I see it more as a revolutionary act of protest.
By the way, these are individuals that will tell you that there is no circumstance ever that Immigration Customs Enforcement should deport a person from this country. Doesn't matter if the person was an actual child molester in Minnesota who abused children. People like this will say, well, yeah, Tim Walz should pardon him so ICE can't deport him, even though he is not a citizen of this country and did horrible, evil, violent things. Doesn't matter. But this they have a gray area for.
The likes of which we haven't seen since the civil rights era. My reactions in court, relief, I guess is the word. I think for a very long time people have ascribed this idea that supporters are painting him out to be guilty by having conversations about the healthcare industry.
They are, because they're saying, yes, he did it, and I'm glad he did it.
So to no longer have to fight that battle is satisfying and relieving. He has a lot of battles to fight. I want him to be happy and healthy, but
it's always a little, again, by the way, the same kind of group is like super in favor of Abdul El-Sayed more than like any other group in Michigan, except for like the Dearborn group. Like this, the college educated, really wealthy, Nepo baby white girlies, these are the ones that are all in for the chaos and the revolution because it's what gives them attention. I'm not joking. This is what gives them attention. That's what they want.
I want America to continue questioning, our current predicaments and why we allow our futures to be stolen away by oligarchs.
So she has no idea what any of those words mean. So again, calling that a revolutionary act of protest. By the way, in case you're interested, her name's Abdul Rios. She's a media aid and community organizer with a master's of fine arts in film and comms. Wow. Just incredible, just amazing that they're all, seriously, all the same. Now, some of the candidates running for office, some of the DSA, who earlier this year was saying that they refused to condemn, Luigi just understood, he's heard, or, like Abdul El-Sayed said when he was making excuses for the man who had family in Hezbollah that then decided to drive a vehicle filled with explosives through a daycare and synagogue. And Abdul El-Sayed said, well, hurt people, come on. A lot of the Democrat socialists are trying to kind of walk stuff back, because just a few of them are recognizing that it's really, really not working for a huge chunk of the country. Now, for some different reasons, but for a huge chunk of the country. And that's a problem in a midterm that you should really have in the bag. AOC, of course, we've talked about the representative from New York who froze her eggs, said woke one was crazy, and then dumped her fiance, and is just the most specialist little bartender that you ever did see. She's trying to pretend that she's like some serious individual now. Now she's taking some national darts for it. The president's statement on this today I thought was funny. That's why I'm sharing it for you. I got a chuckle out of it.
She said the other week, AOC, woke one was crazy. She's trying to back away from those comments. Why do you think she's trying to do that? Is she going to run for president?
I think so. But if you really look at it, they're all saying the same thing. They're all trying to disavow themselves from saying about crime. And we love sanctuary cities. All the things that they said, they're now trying to disavow. But people know the woke. They know the woke. And the woke will become woke again as soon as they get elected.
By the way, that's true. Absolutely true and correct. Now, that brings us over to the actual moves because over in the election, the races for the midterms, all of the weird, bizarre digital footprint that they think they can just kind of have go away. They think, oh, well, I can just kind of ignore it and then no one will ever remember anything. The left and the right have this really bizarre idea in politics. Radio crew, welcome back from your commercial break. This is the Tony Kinnett Cast. The left and the right have this bizarre idea that the youths are the future of candidates. And when I mean the left and the right, I mean the voting bases of the left and the right are like, yeah, give us the youths, get us the young people. And when they run the youths against the older establishment types, sometimes they can score some wins, a lot of youth and vigor and excitement, and they're not 80 years old and have been dead for 6 months. And there's some nice stuff to that. The problem is when you get to a place like Michigan, and you have Mike Rogers, who is a pretty normal dude running as a Republican, who's pretty popular in the state, who barely by 0.3% lost to Elisa Slotkin, another just like regular person. Well, at least can pretend to be one most of the time. Abdul El-Sayed, no. And a lot of the youths, they can't escape the receipts that will now come out. There are no receipts to come out about Mike Rogers. There are none. Like, there are just none of them at all. There are none of these like youthful candidates that don't have all of the baggage in the world, and all of the older like Republican candidates they're running against, they really don't have any baggage to share. It's already out there by now. So Abdul El-Sayed is an excellent example of this, first and foremost, because all of the youths who will get out in their early days and say the most bizarre, insane stuff will then taint the rest of the crew. And again, this isn't just for Abdul El-Sayed, it's for like the socialists in general. For example, again, the revolutionary violence calls, they're not just benign, small, passionate, asking questions. This is Ashik Siddiq.
What does it mean when you say you want to abolish the Senate? Ashik, Megan, you responded to this. So Ashik, what does that mean?
We ultimately want to replace the two-party system with a multi-party democracy, something like a parliamentary system that exists in many other countries.
And again, I love this argument. They can't actually explain why. They can't. And the other parliamentary systems that have failed consistently, again, the UK has gone through like 10, 12 prime ministers in the last couple of years. The parliaments in many of these countries around the world are broken. Congress, for all of its foibles, is not built to do so, at least not in the same way.
So abolishing the Senate is not something we could snap our fingers and do next year.
Correct, thank God.
Or in a few years. But we want to expand democracy so that we have a much more representative, something like the House of Representatives.
So the reason that they're mad is that they don't like that a state like Indiana, for example, has 2 senators, and a state like California also has 2 senators. They don't care for that. They think the tyranny of the majority is a very, very, very important thing, and it should just be mob rule. That's the entire perspective. Then they call it democracy. When I told you that the youths trying to kind of reshape themselves, and again, trying to kind of get away from this, because Abdul El-Sayed, he wants to get away from this. He wants to distance himself from the socialists. He wants to distance himself from the insane stuff. And so he thinks, well, if he just deletes a lot of old tweets, like Graham Plattner style, then he'll totally be fine. And that'll be enough to take down Mike Rogers. No, because it turns out that people like yours truly, we just so happen to have the receipts and we save them. We have a lot of receipts. If you're young and you're online, you've likely, especially if you're in the political space, God forbid if you've ever done any kind of theater or acting, you've talked on a camera way before it was good for you. And Abdul is no exception. So this is Abdul El-Sayed spending his summers in Egypt, calling Michigan dark and desolate, jetting off to LA. I just trash talking your state. He just did this with Mackinac, and these clips are everywhere.
Between my day job, this one, and general goings on in this sometimes awful, sordid world, I was really feeling it. The usual spirit that I try to bring to my work faded. Every email became an annoyance. Every issue at work a drag. Vacation couldn't come soon enough. Michigan around this time of year, let's just say it's not its most inspiring. The sun barely comes up, and then it's down again by 5 o'clock, leaving you in a dark, desolate freeze.
So just, again, trash talking the state that you're running for, yeah, not a good strategy, not really a good point. The reason that I bring up all of these particular clips is that he is really sinking in the polls with Mike Rogers. He should be experiencing a huge surge in popularity. After a primary, you do see about a month and a half of the summer surge. And by the way, the reason this is that a lot of the youths come and vote in the primary elections. And I'm not even joking. This seems to be tracking on the data because it is warm outside. That is why youths will come out and vote in the primaries and are way less likely to come out and vote in the general. I wish I could tell you I was joking. I wish I could tell you that doesn't appear to be a really strong correlation. The youths get really, really excited about a candidate. Brat Girl Summer, oh my God, like that kind of a thing. And then it fades as you get into the fall. And the youths just try to survive the holiday season. So that brings us over to the polling. Harry Enton over at CNN. It's not looking good for Michigan and the Democrats.
Well, I was interested because I couldn't think of another example where you actually had a Democratic candidate who was down at least 4 points 4 points in a Senate poll in Michigan. And it turns out for this entire century, Abdul El-Sayed is the only one in a poll that meets CNN standards for publication. This is extremely, extremely, extremely unusual. Abdul El-Sayed breaking records in the ways that you don't want to. In fact, he is the first Democrat down by this much, as I said, in a century since 1994.
Now, it's all about momentum. It really is. All about momentum. What you really need from right now until the election season is you need Democrats to not have any scandals at all, and you need them to start attacking the administration, which they can do, while simultaneously providing an alternative. The opposition has to say, here's where we can go. And they've tried the Medicare for all thing. That's all they really have. Other than that, you have the socialists. So the only four big policies the Democrats have pushed at all in the last 2 decades, the only two. Number one, the insane socialist policies of abolish everything I don't like, whether it's the Electoral College or whether it's the Senate or whether it, et cetera, ad nauseum. Number two, it's shouting your abortion. The Massachusetts governor just signed a bill this week that allows abortion up until the moment of birth, until the kid passes the vaginal canal, which apparently in the Massachusetts governor's mind magically turns someone into a human. So they think that, by the way, that's what the Democrats we were told was going to totally make this huge blue wave when Roe versus Wade was overturned, and then it didn't. The voting data did not show suburban women came out surging in angry mama bears in favor of abortions in that prior midterm. That didn't happen. I was told it didn't happen. So that means, where are we now? Like, what are we actually looking at today? Well, the other issues Democrats have are the Medicare for all thing and racial reparations, which are now no longer popular. Now, they are really popular among the black candidates in the South who are running for Congress. Or in Missouri, for example, like Cori Bush, who's still really outraged that she got beat in the primary. Jasmine Crockett, who just got beat by James Tallarico. The young and excited guys down in Tennessee who are yelling and raving and breaking up the state legislature in session all the time. Those guys, they're very, very mad. And they survived off of the breast milk of the DNC, meaning like all of the funding and attention that just came for existing. Like, you're not really special because of your merit, because of what you're proposing for your constituents. You're special because you fit this multicultural Obama coalition. We have to keep all of the little tabs happy. And again, I've said this is the reason why before they don't mesh, they don't actually blend. This is why the Democrats have never actually raised any group in their party from the milk to the meat. Because those groups are so focused on themselves, there's no coalition. The best they have is that everyone is oppressed and needs to give me things, which is why, by the way, whenever Donald Trump says anything, you will have, and it'll be one statement. Donald Trump will simply say, I really don't like California's kind of a crappy place from time to time. The LGBTQ crew will say, well, Trump said that because he's homophobic. The feminists will say Donald Trump said that because he's sexist. The Black Democrat Congressional Caucus will say, well, Trump said that because he's racist. You catch the idea? So what you have is a lot of internal strife in the party because the breast milk has been taken from black and brown voters, whatever that means, and it's been then moved to the socialists, which really upsets everyone else. Despite that, they're just really unpopular in the country. They're just not popular. And that's before all of the scandals. And it turns out that Abdul, a lot of scandals. We covered this yesterday, that Abdul, while he was managing the Detroit area animal control, that while they may only euthanize like 30, 35, 40 cats in a year, under Abdul El-Sayed's leadership, they euthanized like thousands, plural, of dogs. There was a survival rate when Abdul was running the Detroit animal control of like 20% if you're a dog. And all the accusations that come out with that. Again, the kind of the Islamist stuff. It does appear that Haley Stevens, who was the Joe Biden, Chris Farley weirdo that ran against him, she appeared to know this before the election, but just didn't come right out and say it.
It's so great to be with all of you and the dogs. Because the dogs can't vote, but the dogs are counting on us.
Well, she's not wrong.
And they want to live in America that has truth, decency, honor, and justice.
Ah, yes, the 4 words I just pulled out of a Mad Libs book. Exciting. Can't possibly fathom why she didn't win that primary election. Beautiful. Anyway, Radio Crew will send you off to the commercial break. We're going to dive in a little bit more because Abdul's sister, a professor at the University of Chicago, is just celebrating Islamic terrorism openly. Wonderful. Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. So I see a comment from Free State Florida Gal in the live chat. She says, why didn't Haley Stevens actually bring this up? Because it would have been seen as anti-Islamic. It would have been seen as Islamophobic. That's the reason. Because in Islam, dogs are haram. They're considered dirty and evil. And again, this is why I've said that if you live in a country that forbids firearms, you want to be safe in a lot of these no-go zones of your cities and country, get yourself a German Shepherd. Again, this is what I've argued is one of the only good arguments on planet Earth for owning a pit bull. But anywho, so that's why she didn't say it. She didn't want to be called homophobic. Or not homophobic, Islamophobic. So the other side of this, why does her sister matter? Because again, Abdul has tried to make the case, and so is all of the media infrastructure. Like, oh my gosh, don't say he's a jihadist. That's so rude and mean. And like, you're just being so mean to the Muslims of Dearborn, Michigan. It's so mean. So that particular argument is being run by the media. And Abdul is trying to say at the same time, no, I'm not a jihadist. My family's not jihadist. We were raised in America and we all love America, and all that kind of stuff. Only it turns out that his sister, again, professor at the University of Chicago, is an actual nutcase. So here she is celebrating the rape and murder of innocent women and children, and again, the murder of men as well on October the 7th. Says, I just want to start by saying Allahu Akbar in response to this.
The narrative that might equals right.
So there you go, the khafiyah, the might equals right, The
narrative that we should just give up and accept an unjust status quo. God is greater, and we are greater than this moment.
By the way, in case you were wondering why the alliance between the socialists, the Reds, and the Islamists, the Greens, this is why. This is why the alliance. Because they're like, well, it doesn't matter if there are rules and there's like a society and there's a manner with which to affect change. Just go kill people. And then make up your own excuses for why you think it's an act of protest. Again, they say the word protest because they want you to think it's like, oh, it's like your First Amendment. It's like protest. It's good. No.
We'll get past this. I hope that all of you take a moment to grieve all the siblings that we've lost over the past year, to acknowledge that you are a different person than you were a year ago, and to mourn that version of yourself that's now gone. But I hope you see yourself now as stronger, as more ready to fight for justice, or as more in solidarity with the oppressed.
It doesn't, again, it's just oppressor and oppressed. Having money and then not having money, that's the entire idea. Unless they have money, then they're just oppressed just like you are.
I hope you know that we have a lot of work ahead of us and that we need each other to do that work. We have an imperative to not just imagine a better future, but to build one together. I'll see you on the streets.
Incredible.
University of Chicago, it's evil, it's a colonial landlord. Why would I put any of my political energy into this space? And I kind of had a little bit of disdain for people who spent a lot of time doing that. And the genocide really collapsed that and made me realize that two things. One is that, my students needed me. So it was like, I have to organize here to take care of my students who I do care about. But I also realized, and I think this is a painful lesson that a lot of us in the Palestine Solidarity Movement have been learning, is that we don't have power. We can shift the moral authority all we want, and we've won the moral question. That was the imperative that we've had. Done, check. Put Palestine in the national consciousness. We did it.
Again, it's all just an argument for a lot of slaughter, a lot of murder, and again, the toppling of the American system, and again, Western civilization in general. And it comes at the slaughter of some Jews, some Christians who they consider white oppressors or colonizers. Well, so be it. After all, that's the idea. I'm not quite sure how Abdul El-Sayed, and say, well, he doesn't speak for his sister. That's true, but he's already given her, the bona fides as saying, hey, look, she's totally fine. We grew up in the same house. We have the same values. Well, then when the sibling comes out there and starts saying insane stuff, you've made the claim. And again, as for the genocide they keep talking about, it's always amazing to see a genocide, so to speak, in which the population increases. Curious for sure, I'd say. Radio crew, welcome back from your commercial break. Sorry, I didn't welcome you back. That would be my bad. I think we have this particular clip. Let me make sure I have it up here.
The narrative that might equals right.
Yeah, just incredible stuff. Incredible stuff, truly. I mean, just a bizarre time indeed. Now, finally, we'll get away from that kind of thing. This brings us over to the mess, because the mess of Iowa is truly insane. Saying really stupid things and having receipts for it, it's coming all over the country. And again, this is a year in which the Democrats should have no problem at all. No problem at all. Breezing, and I mean breezing past any issue and going right through and taking back the House and the Senate. And a lot of state gubernatorial positions as well. Are they doing it? Nope. So when I say a lot of old receipts coming back, and this may sound a little strange at first, there's this Democrat named Chris Jones. And Chris Jones is running to be the Secretary of Agriculture for Iowa. Now, I don't know if you know this about Iowa, but kind of a farming state, you know? And so the Democrat, Chris Jones, who is currently running to be Iowa's Secretary of Agriculture, there is a video of him in 2021 mocking and degrading and insulting all farmers. I'm not joking. Here you go.
And a lot of this grain farming now, it's not that hard. They're only working a few weeks out of the year. These farmers might be industrious and they might be ingenious and, you know, all these other adjectives you want to say about it. But the truth is, you know, a lot of them are millionaires. They're really wealthy guys. They're making 3 times as much as the average Iowan. And a lot of this grain farming now, it's not that hard. They're only working a few weeks out of the year.
Oh my. Oh my. Running to be the Secretary of Agriculture and saying grain farmers have it easy. They only work a few weeks out of the year and they're really, really, really wealthy. So just as a quick little flip back here, I want to make this clear. There was a polling state, and this last poll was at the end of July. He was at 40% against Mike Naig. I don't know how to pronounce that last name. I'm sorry, Naig. 42% is the incumbent and the Republican. I guarantee it. In the next month, because of that video alone in Iowa, the Republican Mike will be up by double digits against the Democrat Chris Jones. That is insane. Guys, that's like running to be the mayor of New York City and saying, I hate taxi drivers. It's like running to be the governor of Wisconsin and saying, I hate the Packers. Even Francesca Hong, the socialist, and Zoran Mamdani did not make those mistakes. I mean, good Lord. And then, by the way, just as a quick fact check here, and I reached out to a friend of mine, JB Chapman. He's a farmer that I grew up next to. And I asked him kind of a couple of questions here because I was curious as a farmer. I wanted to check up some things. So I said, he said he obviously doesn't know too many farmers. When it comes to the owning millions and millions of dollars, they make so much more. Farmers also spend a lot more than the average person. You guys do realize that farmers don't like work for companies who just swap out tires and combines and tractors and sprayers whenever. On many of these tractors and combines, it's like $100,000 or more. I'm lowballing it there to replace one tire. They don't even get to keep their seed at the end of the year. A lot of the companies, Asgrow, DeKalb are 2 of them, they make the farmer sign contracts. So the farmer will not save some of the leftover seed or go get some of the seed from the crop that grows and then hide it for next year to kind of plant and then grow the overall stock. They're not allowed to do that. Farming is a massive high risk, and in today's day and age, sometimes reward game. Say, they're millionaires. Yeah, well, they also have an expense account. If they make $2 million a year, their expense account for the year is still like only 185,000 left. They're racking up $800,000, $900,000, $1.9 million in expenses for the year. It's very, very tight budget for a lot of farmers, especially with the cost of the fertilizers, et cetera. So the Democrats are currently trying to do, I know this sounds kind of funny, like why actually Iowa Dems Field of Nightmares. Daniel, that's a very funny Chiron. Right now, right here, what's their plan to actually salvage this? Because again, I know state elections maybe around the country may not be very excited for you. They have called all of the old, angry, liberal women to come complain about the creek water.
I'm by North Walnut Creek in Windsor Heights, where my siblings and I used to splash around sometimes as kids.
Okay.
But when I was raising my own kids in this same neighborhood, I never let them play in the creek because the water was gross.
Now, you seem like a lady who appears that she doesn't have young kids anymore. But she's, okay, so the creek water, she says, was gross. All right. What does that have to do with this election?
I'm Laura Bellin, and according to a new poll, a lot of Iowans are as disgusted as I am by the state of our dirty water.
No. I'm sorry. The Secretary of Agriculture does not snap his fingers and magically make all of the water in the state crystal clear. Indiana Democrats have been trying this one for ages, and it's not. As a former science teacher, allow me to tell you that ain't how it works. Not at all. Best of luck to you on this. Radio crew, we'll see you guys on Monday on the other side of this weekend. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. We're going to continue on the live stream for a little bit more. TKC here on 93 WIBC and the Daily Signal. Take care. All right. We'll let her.
Research conducted the poll on.
Oh, sorry. I forgot her poll. Oh, yes. This is very fun.
Poll, a lot of Iowans are as disgusted as I am by the state of our dirty water. Change Research conducted the poll on behalf of Chris Jones' campaign for Iowa Secretary of Agriculture.
So you're citing this poll that was an internal poll conducted by the candidate that you're advertising for? I believe. Oh, okay.
And they.
By the way, there's a reason that when I'm reading reports to you, some of you have asked why I cite CNN, why I cite, other outlets that aren't like leaning to the right. Because again, all of you already know I'm on the right. So if I only ever cite right-leaning sources, then it has the potential to damage some credibility. So I use a mix of sources. Going out and saying, this is like a university who's been accused of doing something really awful, like in the civil rights case, like Harvard in the civil rights case, for example, and then turning around and saying, we investigated and we decided we're not bad at all. We're wonderful.
Found out that the Democrat starts out within striking distance of the Republican incumbent, Mike Naig. Before respondents heard anything about either candidate, Naig was ahead of Chris Jones by 42% to 40%.
Okay, so best of luck. Best of luck with this. Again, let's see. I don't like our creek water versus insulting farmers in Iowa. Excellent. Now, again, at the gubernatorial level, this is where things get kind of funny. I hate the Iowa State Fair being like the place that everyone comes to simp. I don't care for it. I really don't care for it. And I think that anyone having a bad time at the Iowa State Fair who is there for a political reason deserves to have a bad time. And the reason I say that is the state fair should not be for politicians. The state fair should be for people to go and enjoy the agriculture, the entertainment, and especially the food of that state. That's what the state fair should be for. That's my hot take of all time, but it's also very, very true. So as a quick reminder, you've got all of these various interesting individuals that descend on Iowa to kind of do a soft announcement that they're going to run for president. Maybe they're going to get out there. Only now people are so tired of being pandered to that, people are just getting booed immediately. So this from Ellen Mullenbach, Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona, who's been really angry at Trump and, again, encouraged a lot of U.S. troops to mutiny and violate the Uniform Code of Justice and all other kinds of stuff. He decided he was going to come to the Iowa State Fair. This is a guy who, when asked any questions at all, like, hey, did you know that Eric Swalwell was like molesting people? He was like, I'm very focused on Arizona. So here he is in Iowa, which is not close to Arizona, and he's getting heckled. Now, again, do I look, heckling and like the loud booing and yelling? All right, whatever. It's kind of weird anytime, any place. But I do enjoy all of these folks on the left who think that they are just so super duper popular, getting out into the middle of the country and finding out that's not the case. Now, the Democrat candidate, who is a socialist for Iowa's governor, Rob Sand, he also showed up. And so many people just started booing when they saw him. Exhibit A. So much of that booing. and just following him around, again, the signs, all this stuff, that he ended up hiding in a bathroom. All right, that's a move. Hiding in a bathroom until the police could come escort him out of the state fair because everyone was booing him. So as far as all of this online narrative you're being told about how everyone is super excited about the midterms for all these candidates, guys, it just ain't true. It is not true in any way, shape, or form. And I will say this one last thing here about the socialist for Iowa, Sand, to be the governor of the state. A lot of people think that Iowa is going to really heavily flip blue in this election cycle. I hear that every year, and then it doesn't happen. It's kind of like the Texas thing. We'll have to see. But Sand originally was set to release a couple of internal polls, say how he's doing against the Republican Zach Lan. And it turned out that after he was only found to be up 1 point in a Siena and New York Times poll back in June, he canceled 2 following internal poll releases, which is never a good sign. You may remember Kamala Harris canceled like 2 internal poll releases right before the end of the 2024 election season. So thrilling stuff. All right, a little bit of a home stretch here because I'm really tired and not feeling my best. So it's not going to be the longest show this evening. I want to give you a very quick update on just some of the very bizarre fraud cases that have come out of this week, and then hit a couple of stories that I've been itching to hit for a while. So first of all, the former Columbus Vice Mayor Joseph Mickens has been arrested and indicted for fraud. Now, I believe that's Columbus, Mississippi. We have the clip of this, don't we?
Joseph Mickens Sr. was indicted on money laundering and another charge of inducement to influence and award of contracts. Now, this is video that we shot this morning of Mickens being transported from jail to his arraignment.
This is like the 5th this year, the 5th Democrat mayor or mid-state level official that has been charged and convicted of office fraud. What is going on in the park? What's going on? Lawrence, Massachusetts Mayor Brian DePena, leaving federal court this afternoon, charged with wire fraud and money laundering charges. Incredible.
No comment, guys. You know this.
Mayor, do you have any comment?
Hi, guys.
Now, he allegedly obtained more than $1.5 million in COVID small business loans and then used the money for, you guessed it, personal political expenses.
Do you have any comment to the city?
Hi, guys. Hi, guys. Hi, guys. How are you, no Mr. comment. Mayor? Excuse me. I'm What's fine. Excuse me, guys. What's your? No, I don't want to. Just relax. Thank you. God bless you. God bless you. Just relax. You don't God bless you. We're not. We're just. God bless you.
Sure. Do you think they?
Incredible. Beautiful. Stellar. And in case you're wondering, hey, what in the world is this guy? Does he actually speak English? Does he actually understand people? No.
I don't speak perfect English. When I knock in door, never I promise to my constituency. I speak perfect English, but I make one promise. I move education forward.
I move education forward and money, like into his own wallet. Beautiful. And he also, again, a lot of the heckling going on the voter fraud side of things. Finally, I've been waiting to talk about this one for a hot minute here. In Minnesota, James O'Keefe and Cam Higbee, they showed up in Minnesota. Well, you know what? I'll let James O'Keefe explain this one to you. This is an interesting act of independent journalism for sure.
Hi. Hello. Can I get your last name, please? You can spell the first 3 letters.
So you can see Cam Higbee here in the black. He's all burkered up, exciting stuff, exciting times. And they showed up to, and I want to get the James O'Keefe costume up here because again, he's used to like impersonating gay dudes and going on dates and getting like undercover videos. Now he's going on full Islamic kind of stuff. Okay.
I'm James O'Keefe, and this is vouching for 7 other Muslims at a Minneapolis polling booth.
So, going to Minneapolis, going to vote, and according to Minnesota state law, and vote. They say, "Oh, Minnesota has voter ID." No, if one person has voter ID, they can vouch for 7 other people who have no ID at all, which is bizarre. So,
we're going in to this location and I'm going to say that I'm vouching for them. The name is William Lawrence. The question about the vouching program, vouching. I can vouch for them, but they are not registered. That's okay, that's fine.
Not registered to vote. No one has any idea who they are. Just one person can vouch for 7 additional votes.
Can I bring 5 more from up to 8 people?
So there's all of this footage emerging of, again, Cam Higbee dressed up in a burqa, pretending to be a Muslim woman, and basically just showing up.
Hello.
Have you voted here before?
No.
No. Okay, well, go down to where it says voting, take a right, and they'll help you out in there. Hello.
Hello.
Register over there.
Hello, what is your last name? Is that
The bleeping out is the last name on record.
and what is your first name?
Genevieve.
Genevieve?
And vouch.
I'm sorry?
Vouch.
She's vouching.
I vouch.
Oh, for her? And is she Genevieve?
No.
So are you wanting to vote first? You're gonna have to make a phone call.
So even if the rule is that one person has to have a voter ID and then can vouch for 7 or 8 other people, it looks like Cam Higbee showed up and just said a random first name and last name, provided no identification of any kind, and then said, "Oh, I'm vouching for all of these other people too."
Yes. But can she vote if I vouch?
No, good luck. Does she live within this precinct?
Yes.
Yep, we can get her.
Oh, she lives. Oh, yeah, sure, she lives here. She does. Pinky promise. Oh, it's not. No, there's no voter fraud, guys. It doesn't happen.
So are you wanting to vote first, though?
Yes, but vouch for her.
Okay.
So she vote. So if I vouch, she vote.
So I do encourage you to go actually check it out. Just again, James O'Keefe and Cam Higbee releasing this one. Excellent stuff. I will say one final thing here regarding independent journalism. I've been meaning to say it for just a hot second. Okay, I know there are a lot of people who have done some of these kinds of things. Cam Higbee, of course, we've played a lot of his stuff.
41,500.
Going and doing the same kind of thing. There are some rules that you should be very, very well aware of. And this is one of the things that, like, the Southern Poverty Law Center on the left is currently feeling the business end of the boot on, and for very good reason. You're not allowed to violate the law just because you're documenting it. So you can get really, really, really close to, suggesting if the person offers, which a lot of times these individuals will. They'll make like all of these overages and offers to you, but you're not allowed to actually request to violate the law. Then you can get into some really sticky situations. So the reason I say that is I just really don't want to hear any stories about those of you watching the show and then suggesting, oh, well, yeah, I mean, and this is clearly the thing I'm going to go do. I'd be rather careful doing this one. So, but either way, yes, lots of very scurrilous activities that are currently happening. All right. Very, very quickly, want to thank our sponsors, the Alliance Defending Freedom. It's hard to know what to say when timeless truths are challenged, like the definitions of simple words like man or woman. Gender ideology has permeated almost every area of public life, even the WNBA. I know, I'm also shocked, including your kids' school, sports, medical, ethics, religious freedom. If you're not sure how to navigate all of the stuff that you actually deal with on the day-to-day basis, you're not alone. This is why the Alliance Defending Freedom has created a free 5-part video series. This free 5-part video series helps you respond to the destructive lies of gender ideology with facts fortified by grace. You'll hear from experienced attorneys on how this ideology is affecting culture and how you can advocate for your beliefs and freedoms. Get the free series right now to your inbox. Go to joinadf.com/Tony and equip yourself to stand for the truth with confidence and clarity. Okay, so we're going to move to just a very, very, very quick smidgen of mail time before we close out this week. And there have been a lot of phenomenal questions, and I want to get to them before I go, pass out. So without further ado, mail time. Mail time. Mail time. Mail time. On the Tony Kinnett Cast. Okay, so up first and foremost, will you talk about the USS Abraham Lincoln? Yeah. I said earlier this week when we were covering, again, some of the very, very bizarre and interesting situations surrounding the living conditions on the 265-day deployment now of the aircraft carrier, the USS Abraham Lincoln. There were media reports that six sailors had jumped off of the ship because mental health was at a breaking limit and they couldn't handle it anymore. And a very select, interesting number of media outlets ran with the story. The Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, came out and said a lot of this appeared to be misrepresented. And I think that we have that clip from the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, where he made the case. He thought a lot of this was misrepresented here. I think, here you go.
Completely misrepresented. Listen, we make sure at every ship, every crew, every captain has everything we can provide them at every single moment. Some deployments are longer than others, and I have more respect and gratitude for those sailors than anybody. What they do in those high seas and those austere conditions with less port calls, it's incredible. I mean, Americans don't understand what it's like to do that. So as someone who's not been on a ship like that, but been on long deployments, I feel it. I want them home as soon as everybody else do. I want folks rotated as quickly as possible. I want the best for them. My commanders know that. Our service secretaries know that. The president expects that. And so to that crew and to all those crews, we're going to do everything we can for you. And we are so grateful for their dedication.
So I've been trying to look into some of this for you. And a lot of this information is just genuinely hard to get a hold of. Two of the supposed testimonies from sailors aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln were found to be false and just not true, just completely made up. So I'm still looking. It's not an aversion to talking about things. I have no, qualms with talking about the Middle East. The president of the United States, for example, said, maybe we're going to make the Strait of Hormuz U.S. territory earlier today. And do I think the president is actually going to be able to do that? I think here's the clip of that.
We're bringing the prices way down. Look at what's happening, coming way down. And after we finish defeating Iran, which is being very badly defeated, pretty soon I'll be declaring the Hormuz Strait a territory of the United States.
Now, can the president declare a strait, like an actual piece of territory like that, U.S. territory? Not necessarily. Could the United States encourage the United Arab Emirates to seize the little chunk of the southern end of the point that's owned by Oman, seize that, and then give that territory to the United States? Yes, they could. That's happened before in history, by the way, in United States history, in fact. So could that happen? Sure. Do I think that's going to happen? Probably not. But either way, with the blockade holding, I think that a lot of the jury is still kind of out on that. So again, one of the reasons that I don't cover something for a few days is because I refuse to tell you guys that there's brand new, huge breaking news, especially if I don't know all the details. There's a lot of people who pretend they know all of the details and then don't. But some of those shows aren't necessarily for me. I don't know. Maybe they're for you. Next question here. What is it going to take for Trump to realize that Xi in China is playing him for a chump? I know that Trump wants to believe everyone is his friend. Trump has said before he doesn't actually believe everyone is his friend, but he has a policy, which is where he kind of sweet talks the enemy, and then he'll be really, really rough to kind of allies. That's kind of his negotiation style. Do I believe that Trump is making bad decisions on allowing Chinese students and nationals into the United States? Yeah, I do. But is he also boxing China out on the Belt and Road Initiative? Yes, he is. So I don't think it's necessarily as much of a chump thing as I think he's making an economic wager. But I don't know if I can really get into his head on that one. From Nutsmasher, Tony, what's the big deal about the Kennedy Center? What's so dang important for Trump's name to be on it? Seems like an unnecessary waste of time and political capital to me. Yeah, I have to tell people in DC, because I work for the Daily Signal, a lot of my colleagues are in DC, and when I have to go to hell, I mean Washington, once every month or two, I have to remind people that the rest of the country doesn't care about the Kennedy Center at all. They don't. It's a place that has like a lot of big windows. I remember from my 8th grade trip and some subsequent trips by the building, they have some nice concerts there. It's a concert hall and like a kind of pseudo arts, little tiny-ish, not really museum, but like a collection of some American cultural historical artifacts. It's not that important. Is it important for Trump's name to be on it? No. Trump has a big ego. That's the answer. Trump's got a really big ego. Does it mean that it's always useful and like, oh, that's always a really good fight to have? No. I don't care about the Kennedy Center. A lot of Americans don't. A lot of people in DC, though, do for some reason. That's kind of that idea. Also, another question, because we broadcast out of Indiana, in the normal part of the country. What do you think about the Indiana, the Chicago Bears keeping their name Chicago, even though they're moving to Indiana? I don't care. I do not care about the Chicago Bears. I've never once cared. The only thing I like about the Chicago Bears coming to Indiana is that it upsets Chicago. That's it. Were it in my power, I would push Chicago into the middle of Lake Michigan after burning it down for a 3rd time. I don't care about the Chicago Bears. I also don't care about the Indiana Fever, which is why you've never really heard me cover the WNBA. And, you know, Victor Davis Hanson here on the Daily Signal does a pretty good job of covering it. So I'm kind of leaving that to him for now. Why is it that you dismiss the radio crew back and from commercial? Part of the reason is FCC rules. We broadcast on a lot of radio stations. First out of 93 WIBC, that's the first station that I was from. And so it's kind of like it's home. That's why I always lead with the WIBC. There are some pre-records of me saying other station markers around the country. Excuse me. Which we've received emails for example. People asking, the audio doesn't quite match up there. FCC rules, you have to sign off and sign on radio stations, kind of an old standing rule. Also, it's a point of etiquette for audio only. You're just kind of juggling a lot of TV and radio. We have a lot of platforms that we're on. And I like live streaming, and I love the YouTube audience. That's, you know, normally why, while during mail time, I have the live chat on the stream. So, you know, I don't know. It's just kind of something that we've always done because this was a radio show first that had some radio live streaming. There's a lot that's changing in media, and there's a lot of people trying to navigate it. So I know that some of you are a little annoyed about it, but if you go back to the very, very early episodes of the Tony Kinnett Cast, and I mean the ones that aren't even on the Daily Signal's YouTube channel, the ones that are on 93 WIBC's YouTube channel, the show used to be a lot different. We've tried to make it more viewer friendly over time. On that last question for the evening, and you know, I think it's a pretty decent question here. What's the one thing that you think no one's actually reporting on that's going to be pretty crucial over the next couple of months? I'm telling y'all, I'm serious. I'm telling y'all, as soon as the United States gets into big midterm election territory, people are going to be shocked by how many Americans do not come out to vote for the midterms. Everyone is expecting it to be like a huge Super Bowl style game. I don't think it's going to happen. Do I think the midterm convention in Dallas is really going to change that? I'm skeptical. I'm glad they're having it, but I'm skeptical. I'll just kind of leave it there. Right now, it just seems like everyone's kind of fumbling the ball. So it's like watching two toddlers on the field instead of two, you know, NFL teams going at it. There were a couple of super chats that thanked, very, very kind. You guys, by the way, did not need to donate money. Tim Exley gave $25, 20 for the SEC comment, and $5 for producer Daniel, because he's pretty excellent. One question from Nancy on a $10 super chat. All right, this really is the last question because my voice is leaving. Would some states move to using FedEx or other services to mail ballots? They could. They really could. Do I think that they'll do so? I haven't heard about any governors kind of investigating it yet. So I'm really at this point, I believe that there is an expectation a lot of Democrats in states around the country think they're going to succeed in the lawsuit. We'll have to see. Again, the Supreme Court's going to consider it, so that's kind of my take on it. By the way, I see a lot of the comments saying, hey, the midterms are really important and I'm going to go vote in the midterm. Well, yeah, of course you are. a lot of people who watch the show, it's a marathon race being involved as an American citizen. Just because you guys here are watching the show doesn't mean that everyone else is going to go watch it. So, all right. That all said, have a wonderful evening and a wonderful weekend. I know I saw the comment about the Coke can and about the Muslim foot washing station in, was it Dallas or something? I don't have anything on those just yet. And also, so check out our Discord. The link to that is in the description. We've got a final video here that I think you guys are going to enjoy over from our friends at the Heritage Foundation. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated and first on 93 WIBC. Take care.
Every state is home to significant historic sites that tell the American story, but not every site is telling that story honestly and fairly. That's why the Heritage Foundation created the Heritage Guide to Historic Sites. This interactive guide equips American citizens with the tools they need to enjoy the sites that depict some of the greatest moments in our nation's history, analyzing them for historical accuracy, and provides resources for families or educators planning a visit. From Mount Vernon to Independence Hall to Gettysburg and more, Americans deserve transparency, and sites that steward our history faithfully deserve our gratitude. The Heritage Guide to Historic Sites invites every American to rediscover the places and stories that define our nation, whether it's across the country or in your backyard. Visit historicsites.heritage.org to start your adventure today.